Hey everybody, Dan here with Pain Free You. I'm going to be shooting a few videos in a row here because I'm going down the seashore in New Jersey for a couple of days. A late summer, early fall visit, and figure I'd bang out a few videos for you. Today's topic is going to be, what's the downside? So I'll get to that in a minute. It is in the low 50s here in Pennsylvania. Overcast, a little bit breezy. So basically it's cold. I'm not looking forward to those days where I got to put on a hat and gloves just to come out here and shoot a video, but that's okay. Breathe in the fresh air. Hope everybody's well. And it may not seem like much, but even the sound of the breeze going through the leaves, nature, it's cool. So today's topic, what's the downside? So what am I talking about? What's the downside of the things I talk about each and every day? Right? What's the downside? What do you got to lose? You know, so I'm talking about the concepts that I teach, gaining absolute clarity as to what this mind-body process is all about, what I call perceived danger pain, what Dr. Sarno termed TMS. Once you understand exactly what that means, it means that you're not broken. So what's the downside of knowing that? Nothing. That's wonderful. It means that your brain is creating the pain due to the brain perceiving danger. And in a case where, you know, you truly injure yourself, you cut yourself in the kitchen, it's supposed to hurt because the perceived danger is accurate. But in the vast majority of chronic symptoms, chronic pains, the perceived danger is just that. It's perceived, but not actual. So what's the downside of knowing that? Well, certainly takes away some fear that, you know, we're walking around in a broken and banged up body, right? No downside there. So what's next? You know, let's make sure that this applies to me. Well, perceived danger pain, TMS, behaves much differently than a structural physical cause problem. And so there are assessments on my website, painfreeyou.com/start. And if you can't get there directly, go to painfreeyou.com and go to the Get Help menu and Getting Started. And do at least the pain test, if not that, plus the FIT assessment. And once it determines that, okay, your symptoms are behaving like TMS or perceived danger pain, then what's the downside in knowing that? That's actually fantastic news, because it means that your brain's controlling and turning on and keeping on the symptoms. Now, some people get afraid by that. They'd much rather have a physical problem that they can say, doctor, fix me, boom, it would be fixed. But I think it's wonderful news because we can actually then teach the brain the accurate knowledge, the accurate data, so that the perception can change. And when the brain no longer perceives danger, guess what it does? Turns off the pain. So what's the downside in that? I think that's fantastic. I would much rather know that I have a brain that's overprotective and I can teach it to be less protective, right? So I also talk about the three states of being that we experience as human beings: emotional state, physical state, mental state. And I also teach that, well, if the brain is perceiving danger, it stands to reason that if I can feel safer emotionally, physically, and mentally, that would go a long way towards turning the brain's overprotection, perceived danger response off. So I teach, feel your emotions without judgment. We don't have to shove them in the closet because they accumulate there, but we certainly don't have to blow up at the people around us because that can create social consequences. So I teach that emotions are safe, emotions are normal, they make us human. What's the downside of that? It just means we're going to experience some emotions. I also teach that the physical body communicates directly with the subconscious. So if you're walking around like this, tense and tight, your brain has no choice but to perceive danger. But if you can become more aware of your physical state and choose to relax it so that you can breathe naturally, a little bit deeper and slower, your brain will have no choice but to perceive safety. So what's the downside to that? There's certainly no upside to walking around looking like you're terrified. Right? So what's the downside to that? And the last state is your mental state. Sometimes our mental state is pretty nice and chill. Other times it's spinning like wild. And the things I teach are we don't have to stop the negative thoughts. We don't have to fix the negative thoughts. But I teach that we don't have to take those negative thoughts seriously. We don't have to believe them. We don't have to engage in them. We don't have to ruminate on them. We don't have to take action based on those thoughts. We can literally just let them pass by. So what's the downside of that? Probably a little bit more peace of mind, right? No downside. I also teach about how we respond to the symptoms or pains is your most powerful tool to teach the brain that you're okay, right? And I recommend freaking out less. Why? Because we have the accurate knowledge of what this perceived danger pain is. We've done the assessments that says, yes, that applies to me, so what am I freaking out about? I know it's massively uncomfortable, but when you truly know that you're okay because you've done the assessments and you understand how the brain functions, we can dial down that fear, which will pull us out of the freak out, right? So freak out less. What's the downside to that? Nobody ever got better by freaking out. So if you freak out less, you're moving in the right direction. Ideally not at all, but we can't go from freaking out 86 times a day to not at all with the snap of the fingers. So I also teach that calm reassurance, the ability to use your intellect and all that accurate knowledge and assessment and, your belief that that's exactly what's going on with you. We use that to calmly reassure ourselves, to calm down the fears. Because perceived danger pain is basically fear, right? So what's the downside to calmly reassuring yourself? None. Lastly, I suggest also that if we can get there, which takes a little bit of time, to be indifferent towards the symptoms or pains. Oh, my back hurts today. So what? Don't care. It's a huge dose of safety going to the brain. So what's the downside of being indifferent? You know what's going on. You know that applies to you. So you know that you don't have to really give a crap about it. You can literally go, so what? I hurt today. So what? I've hurt for 10,000 days in a row. Big deal. I still hurt today. Not a big deal. My brain still hasn't learned that I'm okay yet. Right? And then I suggest also and teach, focus on living your life. Focus on doing normal things within your limitations, but focus on doing normal things. Now, don't misunderstand that to mean that my entire program is go live your life and you don't have to do anything else. Because some people say that, Dan, I've been living my life. I still have the pain. Well, have you been doing some of this other stuff? Do you have that foundational knowledge? If not, then just going out and living your life seems like you're just saying, I'll live with it. But we don't have to just live with it. We can teach the brain something new that we're not actually in trouble. So, for all of this stuff that I teach on a daily basis, what's the downside? What's the downside? I guarantee somebody out there is thinking, but what if it doesn't work? But what's the downside? If it doesn't work, you're at least going to have more peace of mind, less fear, a better mindset, not so consumed by the symptoms, and will be able to shift your attention to living your life more. Well, that still sounds pretty good. But the cool part is, by putting all this stuff into play, into action, what if it will work? Because reliably, people are getting better all over the globe by instituting and applying these concepts. And even the folks who haven't crossed the finish line yet and are still struggling with some symptoms have a much better mindset, and they're learning to enjoy life more. They're getting out and doing more things. What's the downside? So I'm going to really encourage you to take this video on and start to apply this stuff in your life. Use that accurate knowledge to dial down the fear. Accept that this is what's going on with you. If you're not sure, take those assessments. I mentioned it earlier in the video. What's the downside? Aside from the symptoms and the pain, what do you have to lose? Guess what? This doesn't take any extra time. You notice in this whole video, I didn't tell you that you have to spend 2 hours a day doing X, Y, and Z. Those are called fixing activities. I don't particularly believe that fixing activities teach the brain that we're safe, because if we're spending an hour or two a day fixing ourselves, the brain's got no choice but to perceive that there's something wrong. So this is all just about awareness. Accurate knowledge is the foundation. Awareness of your emotional state, feel it. You're human. You're allowed to get sad or angry or whatever. Awareness of your physical state, relax your body. Awareness of your mental state, you don't have to take those thoughts seriously and believe them or fix them or act on them. Choose your response to the symptoms or pain. You may find that if you can respond calmly to a little bit of a spike or flare-up in symptoms or pains, you may find it goes away a lot quicker and doesn't get as intense. Because I can really assure you that if you get a little jump in pain and you freak out, you lose your mind and just dive into the fear, that little flare-up could turn into a big flare-up, more intense, and last a lot longer. And I've got people every week in the group coaching calls saying, yeah, you know, my flare-ups used to last 3 weeks. Now they're lasting 5 days. And somebody else who said, yeah, my flare-ups used to last 5 days are now lasting only a day. These concepts work. So I will ask you once again, what's the downside? So, I'm going to wrap this one up. I hope everybody's doing well. And I hope I get a little bit of warmth as I go down the shore, the Jersey Shore. It's hopefully going to hit around the 70s, so that should be pretty tolerable. Not sure it's swimming in the ocean weather, but it will still be nice. So, hope everybody's well. Love you, and I will see you tomorrow. Take care. Oh, and I forgot the high five yesterday. See you guys.